Hello and welcome. My name is Jason. I'm the CEO of Stingray's Bookkeeping. My website is stingraysbookkeeping.com. I have a YouTube channel, Professor Stingray's Small Business Bookkeeping Made Easy. Earning a degree in accounting was more difficult to me due to my post-concussion syndrome issues. I was encouraged to take a long sabbatical, and I wrote my own autobiography, The Journey of Two Angels. It was written in a format of one extremely long creative writing session that lasted 7 months. I created a website, journeyoftwoangels.com. The full journal as of 2025 is unpublished. I'm using the autobiography as source material. I'm creating several topic-specific sub-books under the series title of Two Angels. Both Two Angels, My Life with CTE. I cover TBI, Post-Concussion Syndrome, and CTE. This is a first-person account of my healing from a concussion in 2008 that was a brain scrambling. I have severe post-concussion syndrome, and I go into great detail. Chapter 1 is the CTE medical terminology. Chapter 2 is I was learning how my brain works. I'm dyslexic, so I was taught how my brain learns and stuff like that. Chapter 3 is my 2 major concussions, about the accidents and what happened. Chapter 4 is my life coping with CTE the first few years after the concussion and the healing. Chapter 5 was my healing injuries through brain therapy. I've been doing a lot of work the last 5 years, and I think that's helped my brain heal. Chapter 6 is my abilities lost due to the concussion TBI. I go through exactly what has changed, because since I know my brain so well, I know what I lost. Chapter 7 is the phoenix rising from the ashes. I lost my life, I lost my career from the last concussion, and I'm trying to rebuild something out of it. I could not think of a better metaphor than a phoenix rising from the ashes. Two Angels, the Unheard Voices of CTE. These are 8 athletes that gave their lives for CTE research. Their deaths were seen as suicides for depression or money woes, and their real reason, their voice is unheard. The real reason was for CTE research. These 8 athletes were our heroes. We cheered them on Sundays or on Saturday nights for the wrestling. They were our heroes on the field. They were our pillars of the community off the field. I think they were heroes leading the research in CTE. And I wanted to give their voices a lasting voice so they can be heard through many years. Mike Webster. Mike Webster was the origin story for CTE. CTE was being called punch drunk syndrome in boxing before. Near the beginning of the movie Concussion, the 12-minute, 30-second timestamp, Justin, another one of the athletes I'm going to talk about, rides up on a motorcycle and finds Mike sitting in his pickup truck in an empty field near an industrial area. Justin also had CTE. Mike is inhaling something when Justin walks up, and in a brief conversation, Justin stated, not Mike, I'm starting to forget things. I am saying this crazy crap to my kids. I nearly pushed Kenya into a wall. Never thought I would do that to her. Mike walks away saying, all I do is finish the game to be winners. So they were both having serious mental issues. Mike was the center offensive lineman during 4 Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowls during the 70s. Now, I grew up in Dallas in the 70s, so the Cowboys Steelers, biggest rivalry in the NFL during that time, by far. Mike, or Iron Mike Webster, died September 24th, 2002, at the age of 50. The medical pathologist, Dr. Omalu, performed his autopsy for the Pittsburgh Medical Examiner and discovered CTE. Dr. Omalu is the doctor talked about in the Will Smith Alec Baldwin movie Concussion. The movie is one of the most difficult movies I have ever watched my entire life. I'll repeat that. This movie is the most difficult movie I have ever watched in my entire life, for the sole reason it sounds so eerily familiar in my own life right now. The following athletes, Mike Webster, Terry Long, Andre Waters, Justin Strzelczyk, and Dave Duerson are the players' cases used in the movie. And I've done a story already on Andre Waters and Dave Duerson. This one's on Mike Webster and Justin. And then Terry Long up at the end of it. Every athlete is a fighter, a warrior who won't come off the field until they are carted off on a gurney. This is why we love sports, seeing fellow men and women being heroes for the game we watch: football, hockey, auto racing, wrestling, boxing. We see them as greatness and full of heart. These sports force everyone us to sacrifice our body's health down the road. To play today, we would all do it. We'd all do it all over again. Now, this is an article. An article in the Post-Gazette.com written by Marilyn Pitts and Byron Spice, staff writers, dated March 15, 1999. Again, I have dyslexia and 2 concussions. I will not pronounce these names correctly, and I am sorry. No one doubts the Hall of Fame Mike Webster needed help, but medical opinions about the cause, nature, and proper treatment of his condition vary. Krieg said Webster had brain injury suffered when he played football. Dr. James Volterra stated that Krieg agreed the medical diagnosis is 100% right. He has technically what we call dementia due to head injury, Krieg said. Age 50. Dementia. Mike has the football version of punch drunk, and that's because the impact in his frontal. It doesn't get better. You get more and more demented. It's sad, Krieg said. Most commonly, they complain of severe headaches. They also have problems with thought processing and suffer deterioration of fine motor coordination, such as a change in handwriting. So Dr. Donald Marion, director of neurotrauma at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Treatment was pain medicine for the headaches and physical therapy. The doctor stated that Ritalin, a drug Webster was obtained to help his lack of concentration, would not have helped him. Ritalin only works on children and not adults. I think it's ADHD also. Reader's Digest article, different article. Reader's Digest article 2003, written by Meryl Gordon, an inside glimpse of NFL player Mike Webster's tragic final days. I did a Dave Duerson final days also. To Mike Webster's final days. Webster scribbled notes torn from a legal page after a heartbreaking gibberish, the legacy of a brain injury sustained while playing a center for the Steelers. His anguish is evident as he writes about his medical state. Deep, confusing, twisting fishing line, tangled up mess of confusing things go on all the time. I understand that. Go back and do that. Deep and confusing and twisted, like a twisted fishing line, tangled up in mess. Yeah, I gotta get that part. Webster could still devour books on Winston Churchill and World War II, yet his memory was so fragmented he couldn't remember the simplest things. Sometimes sleeping in his car by the side of the road because he didn't know how to get home. I talk about writing my book. I thought I have a fragmented and a fractured brain, I feel. While in the University of Wisconsin, met his future wife, Pamela. He had such kindness in his heart. He opened doors for me. He'd call when he said he'd call, and he had such a soft spot for children. He also relished in his indestructible image. On one occasion, Webster showed at a game on his crutches. Showed up on a game with torn cartilage in his left knee, played anyway, and had surgery afterwards. His toughness made him a winner, voted an all-pro team 6 straight 8 years, won 4 Super Bowl rings, and joined the greatest players in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But play after play, year after year, Webster slammed into much bigger players, their helmets crashing into his like battering rams, their foreheads pounding his head, and the beating left his own legacy. He got his bell rung all the time, just like the rest of us, says former teammate Rocky Bleier. Also, like the others, he tried to shrug it off. Everybody gets injured. Most injuries aren't reported. Some players will treat a concussion like a hangnail. Mike Yaris Davis, Director of Benefits of NFL Player Association. I got hit by a car in 2008 and I tried to go home before the ambulance got there. I thought I was okay. Webster had never officially treated for a concussion. He had never complained about anything like this, says Steelers trainer Ralph Burlard. But doctors say he suffered multiple concussions, among other injuries, on his way to the gridiron glory. Soon after his last season in 1990, Pamela Webster urged Mike to move back to Wisconsin, her hometown. That's when, as Pamela says, Mike changed. He seemed physically disoriented and started to behave strangely. Webster had always handled their financial affairs, so his wife was startled to discover he was opening mail, not opening mail, and paying bills or even filing taxes. The reliable family man who used to read his children's Bible stories at bedtime began to get in his car and disappear for days. I didn't realize he had a brain injury. I just thought he was angry at me all the time. It's chaos in your own head with this. Webster retired with several $1 million in assets. Pamela was shocked when their house was foreclosed on 18 months after his retirement. It appears he poured most of his savings into investments that went bad. The financial strain couldn't fully explain his incredibly bizarre behavior. No, it cannot. Pamela put up with it for a while, but the couple separated for the first time around 92. She finally divorced or left Webster last March after years of living apart. Meanwhile, Mike began drifting back to Pittsburgh, spending more time there. Former colleagues soon began to hear disturbing stories about him, but no one knew what was wrong, and Webster was mystified and frustrated himself. He was embarrassed that he couldn't seem to hold a job or even remember scheduled meetings. Steelers Public Relations Joe Gordon says, I got a call from the manager of the Amtrak station saying Mike is here. He slept here last night. Gordon found Webster there, poring over brochures and talking excited about a plan to market celebrity photos. This could be big, but had no place to sleep. The Steelers put Webster in for a hotel for a while. Too proud to ask his teammates for help, a fan named Sunny Johnny, who sought Mike out after reading about his troubles in the newspaper. He was my hero, says Jenny, who owned a grocery store and a sports memorabilia shop. Jenny began to handle the increasingly frequent crisis, bailing Webster out of awkward jams. Mike would call at 2 a.m. and say he's lost. Webster saw a slew of doctors during this period in the 1990s, including one who told him he appeared to be brain damaged. Have you ever been in a car accident? The doctor asked. I've been in 350,000 car accidents, Mark replied. You've ever been in a car accident? I've been in two. By the time Webster entered the Hall of Fame in 97, he had become a recluse. Mike put on a brave face for his two daughters. His two sons who lived with him at different times, Colin and Garrett, saw a more tortured side. Colin Webster remembered that his father was shaking so much from his condition that his desperate solution was to buy a police taser gun. He'd zap himself to calm his nerves. He'd do it 10 or 20 times to relax. This was also the time he was prescribed Ritalin, later forging Ritalin prescriptions after his doctor moved away. In the news conference where Webster apologized for any embarrassment and sadness that he had caused. When you're in that condition, shocking yourself, it seems traumatic to y'all reading this, but to someone who's in a lot of pain, you're trying to change the pain to something else, and anything. You're desperate for that one pain to stop. Webster lawyer Robert Witzalman, he wanted to provide support for his family. Fitz pulled together a raft of supporting medical records and brought into a psychologist from Marshall University Graduate School, Dr. Fred Krieg, to examine Webster. This is from a psychologist. Mike had dementia due to head trauma, a series of blows to his head over a period of time. He couldn't concentrate. He had difficulty focusing. The conversation was rambling. Krieg adds there was no other explanation for Webster's deterioration. The repeated banging of his head against the skull had damaged the brain's nerve cells. All the head trauma. The last year of Webster's life brought a new woes. His divorce became final, his health worsened, and his finances collapsed again. He had been receiving money from annuities and disability payment, much of it went to alimony and child support. but the IRS then garnished almost all his income for unpaid taxes. He and Garrett were ousted from their apartment for unpaid rent. Jenny helped pay for a new place, but Webster couldn't afford furniture. The father and son slept on the floor surrounded by pizza boxes. Often able to pay for medicine, Webster could shake so hard he couldn't drive his son to school. I couldn't leave him in that situation, Garrett recalls. I had to be the dad sometimes. Yeah, I have those shaking problems too. It's bad. On Friday night this past September, Webster went to his son's football game, but as the weekends progressed, he complained of feeling ghastly. I think this is when he passed away. He woke up Sunday morning, his lips were purple, and he was sheet white, Garrett says. Webster refused his panicked son's entries to go to the hospital, in part because he didn't have the insurance. Finally, later that night, he let Janie drive him there. Doctor said he had had a heart attack. Garrett was with his father when he went into the coma and passed away on Tuesday. I took it hard. They told me he was going to die, but when he died, I felt the calm come over me. I could feel a part. I could feel a pat on my shoulder, almost a whisper in my ear. Everything's going to be all right. I could feel a pat on my shoulder, almost a whisper in my ear. The Advocacy for Fairness in Sports.org. When CTE steals your dad, Garrett remembers Mike Webster in a touching article covering the NFL concussion settlement litigation as it plays out. It's easy to get caught up in the dockets and numbers. It's essential to remind ourselves that behind those figures and words are families and personal stories. That's the personal story I'm talking about. After Mike's death, when the family was approached by Dr. Omalu to help with his research on CTE in athletes, he was at the beginning of a new chapter for Webster's family as well. If you take out the head injuries, Dad was ruled completely disabled from football, Webster explained. During that time, none of us thought he had this revolutionary condition that was going to change the world. I remember really distinctly 2 days after he passed away when our lawyer came to us and said he was contacted by Dr. Omalu and he wanted to do a brain exam. This guy thinks he can come up with an answer, a solid, concrete answer for why Dad struggled so much. Dr. Omalu is very responsible and he did things right way. I remember him showing me the autopsy photos and showing me the brain scans. That was definitely hard. It was good to see. It was good too because I could still feel this to this day that my dad would have been fascinated by it and he would have been honored to be part of Dr. Omalu's research. It was definitely hard, but it was good because I still feel that to this day my dad would have been fascinated by it and he would have been honored to be part of Dr. Omalu's research. Dr. Omalu line in the movie, Testing Mike Webster's Brain. This is a quote from the movie. There is not a single case in a book or in life where a man that healthy went that mad, that young, with no visible abnormality of the brain.